Will you give up a home to save a forest? Easy for you to say when you already own a house. But I'm talking to the youth here. Would you give up a home so that a wild boar can continue to graze on the forest floor? That's not a fair question, is it? Unfortunately, housing is a zero-sum game. If you don't build enough housing, prices will go up. With 72% of our available land already built up, it's only a matter of time that we have to encroach into previously rural and forested areas. But if it's not overplanned, it's not Singaporean. If you take a look, you might notice that even currently forested land may already have plans in place. One such example, Dover and Clementi Forest. When plans to build new housing in Dover Forest was announced, Singaporeans who had discovered a newfound appreciation for our natural spaces were in an uproar over the idea that more forests had to be destroyed for infrastructure. Let's be real, it's right next to an MRT station. What a shocker! With public feedback rolling in, HDB eventually decided to revise their development plans for the entire forest, instead choosing to only develop the eastern half, which has less biodiversity. The western half will be set aside and plans will be relooked in about a decade, but part of it will be carved out as a nature park. With that, the announcement of the BTO site has been pushed back. One could consider this a good sign that the government is responsive to public feedback. However, this is just a minute slay in an ever-constructing Singapore. We can see similarities between this and another site zoned for development. Another plot of forest next to the MRT, naturally prime real estate. Like Dover, there are many rare and endangered trees on the site, but this area has one extra rare habitat, the Nee Soon Swamp Forest. Not only is this habitat rare, it also supports the highest percentage of native and threatened freshwater fish and crustacean species on the island. With this and the Dover Forest saga fresh in the overworked urban planners' minds, plans for Springleaf have been released. Get your pitchforks! Or not. Instead of developing the entire forest, only disturbed land will be affected. Disturbed as in land that have been previously developed upon or land that has been abandoned and thus contain less endangered species. The Nee Soon Swamp Forest will be retained with a large natural buffer to keep development away from the sensitive areas. But what's more interesting are the plans for this neighbourhood. Instead of typical buildings, these developments will consist of towers and low-rise stilt housing, sort of like kampong houses elevated 3 stories off the preserved forest floor. Elevated boardwalks will be built to keep the public off conserved areas, and instead of shiny glass exteriors, these towers will have green facades to encourage bird nestings and prevent bird strikes. Imagine waking up to the "ooh" bird nesting outside your window. These towers are also planned to avoid existing vulnerable and endangered tree species on site. Even though these are tentative plans, I'm glad to hear that the voice of the people have spurred the authorities to think about how to develop in a more sensitive manner. Of course, there will always be people who will cry over every tree that we have lost. But as a youth with an already depressing future, I'll shed one last tear knowing that maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to buy a house before the world ends.